check if there's sound. No.
Yeah, sure. I know you're a spy. You want to check to see what's on my phone. And
What's going on with okay, YouTube. We have YouTube as an app.
no,
There it is. There it is.
I do?
It's pre-installed. Whoa, okay, what is this? What is this?
I don't know what's going on. Why it's tough. So the situation is the following: two kings, none of the two are ruling. The divine spirit is taken away from Shaul. He thinks that Hashem is behind this and that Hashem is punishing him. He's like always preoccupied with this matter, that it's Me'et Hashem, but it's not. Hashem took away prophecy from him as a result of what? Of his sin, that he's not. So what's happening here, the Plishtim intervene, infiltrate into the Judean area, the low Judean area, and we're learning about this giant that's physically supplied with the best armory. He's tall, 3 meters, 6 amot high. He has all the armory around, and no one is reacting. No one is reacting. And he's basically belittling and cursing the army of Israel. And he's really up against Shaul. Because he mentions, if you're servants to Shaul, he doesn't call Shaul the Melech. Apparently there's an inner sense of the Plishtim knowing something, or unconsciously, that right now Shaul is only like a regular person, is not kingly, not royal. He doesn't have the royal courage that he had. And he calls for something. Why fight? You send out one guy, I'll fight him, he'll fight me. And one will be servants to the others. And we asked ourselves, is this agreement? Is this a signed agreement? No, it's not. But we explain, the name of Rabbi, as verse 10 says, all he's here is to belittle, to cheapen, to curse Marachot Yisrael, the army, the official army of Israel. Now, no one answers. And when Shaul hears about it, the Tanakh clearly shares with us that Shaul is afraid and Am Yisrael is afraid. Now, this is quite a despicable situation. In your own land, when you have a king, the enemy infiltrates and no one reacts. No leadership. Now, until we opened the chapter, we learned about a very unusual meeting that David was summoned to be together with Shaul. The last thing he wanted to do. He doesn't reveal anything. He doesn't, Shaul doesn't suspect him maybe, or maybe he does suspect him, we don't know. He's not relating it to in his heart. And what do we see? That David is back home. So Rashi did explain that when he was brought to play the instruments and make Shaul happy, whenever he finished the job, he would go home. But he could be summoned any moment. And we ended yesterday's shur in verse 12. Let's start again from here, because we must raise several questions. V'David ben ish Efrati hazeh, mi beit Lechem Yehuda, u'shmo Yishai, v'lo shmona vanim, v'ish bimei Shaul zaken ba, va'anashim. Wow. Now, are we aware of any of these facts here? Are we aware of any facts?
We know that David has 7 brothers, and he's the 8th.
Right. We know that. And we know that Yishai David is living in Beit Lechem of Yehuda.
Okay.
So, what's going on? Why mention these details? So, there's a way of explaining this, and Rabbi brings this as well. Until now, we met up with David in the last chapter as what? As a Menachem. He's playing instruments and he's making Shaul feel happy. Now we're meeting up with a new David. We're going to be meeting up with a David called Ish Milchamot, a man of wars.
So it's like reintroducing...
Beautiful, reintroducing David as a new personality. different than as a nagan, a musical player. And therefore we're told about him, his lineage, that he's from Efrat, and that he comes, and the father, Yishai, who we know is the Shoresh of Mashiach, that Yishai comes from Boaz and Ruth. So we're now going to be learning about a David, that he himself will be the anointed Klapei Tzibor. And right now he's introduced, and we're going to see inside the chapter that he has the courage, the audacity, the power and faith in God to go up against someone that's so strong. What are we told about David's family, or the sons of Yishai? Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayelchu shloshet bnei Yishai gidolim, ahalchu acharei Shaul milchama. Okay? V'shem shloshet banav asher halchu b'milchama Eliyav ha'bechor u'mishneu Avinadav v'ashlishi Shama.
It's interesting. It's the same three sons that also only mentioned in the previous chapter.
Very good. What was mentioned about each of the three in addition to their names? Were they interviewed?
Yes.
And what was the answer?
Shmuel.
It's not them.
Yeah, it's not them.
They know that they are not going to be the anointed king. They may know that David was anointed. Maybe they were present, only them and them only. Could be one of the meanings we tried to offer as an explanation. Why are these three being sent and not others like you asked?
They're not even mentioned by the older brother.
But why are these three that were interviewed? Why are these the ones being sent?
They're sent by themselves or by
They're the oldest.
father, by who?
They're the
It
oldest.
could be that they're the oldest. That's one answer. And another answer that what Chazal talk about, what's happening to them is the spirit of jealousy.
Them by David and so they were-
Jealous of David. And to better deal with their jealousy is not being next to David. This point, and therefore go, leave. By the way, it's not so far. From the Beit Lechem area, we travel west, go down to the Beit Shemesh Hills, and there is the Elah Valley, Tel Azeka, Elah, Efes Damim. So the reason could be that these three are in the war is because they don't want to hang around David, and they're full of jealousy. This point, I think, will be able to prove later on when David is sent by his father with a care package, some ragalach, some other things are sent, as we'll learn, and we'll ask ourselves, what is the reaction of one of the brothers? And why is it that reaction? This could prove the point that because they are clothed right now with jealousy, therefore they're out of the place. Okay? Pasuk Yudalid. V'David, okay, who Hakatan, he's the youngest of all the 8. Ushlosha gedolei malchu acharei Shaul. Okay? This pasuk, you would think, what novelty? We know he's a Katan from the former matter, but rather we said that the Tanakh is introducing us to a new David, a personality that is yet to be revealed, meaning Ish Milchamot, a man of war. And now we're going to come aware. The reason of the upcoming Shlichut, the mission of David being sent to the battlefield. However, the way the things are written with such length and reviews is telling us maybe something of the 3 boys. I want to read to you, one of the famous scholars in Tzfat was the Alshich HaKadosh. And he says this idea that I just shared with you. He's the one that says about the jealousy of the 3. He says, Liotam Gedolim, since they were the oldest, Lavshu Kina, they had jealousy. Heyot David Mashiach Melech, because that the fact that David is now the anointed king. Ve'alkein halchu acharei Shaul milchama. Why did they want to do it? You asked. They wanted to go. Why? Kibo hayu chafitzim. They were preferring Shaul mi b'David achehem. They preferred Shaul more than they preferred their brother out of jealousy. Umagam shloshet banav Eliyav Avinadav v'Shama lekol echad b'fnei atzmo amar Shmuel. Each of the three, Shmuel said to them, Bezeh lo bachar Hashem. They were rejected. And because they were rejected, they had more of a sense of jealousy in opposition to their brother David. And that's what's stated, V'Davido Katan. He doesn't deserve to be the king. That's the feeling of the brothers, that David is the Katan. He's the youngest. And because he's the youngest, the three oldest took themselves and went after Shaul. Okay? Now we can even see the point that we're going to be coming up in verse 28 later, the reaction of the brothers when David shows up suddenly in the battlefield. Okay? Pasuk Tedva, V'David olech v'shav me'al Shaul. This is a hard language. What is me'al Shaul? Lir'ot etzon aviv Beit Lachem. Now, if we asked ourselves, wasn't David living already with King Shaul? And what is he doing here back at his father's place? Didn't Shaul take him as a Aleph, Menachem, a player, a musical player? And two, Nosei Kelav, he is the arms bearer. So the answer is that in spite of the fact that he had these two roles for Shaul, he didn't live permanently with Shaul, we see here. Rather, he was given permission, time to go visit his father. To do what? Lir'ot et hatzon. What is lir'ot et hatzon?
Working as a shepherd.
Working as a shepherd with the sheep. In other words, apparently David has the achrayut, the responsibility of the sheep of the father. And right now the question is, will he or will he not go to the battlefield when he's summoned? And maybe that's the word V'David olech v'shav me'al Shaul. It should have stated V'David olech v'shav me'im Shaul. But me'al Shaul means that the separation is, when he wants to go, he goes home. When there's a need for him to go, he leaves the high level position that he has from Shaul, and he goes home when he's needed. This is what the Tanakh is telling us back on the ranch in Beit Lechem. What's happening in the valley of Ema? The Tanakh tells us now, don't forget what's happening in the Elah Valley. Pasuk Tet Zayin. Vayigasha plishti hashkem v'ha'arev vayityatzeiv 40 yom. We're like in the middle of the drama, what's going on in Beit Lechem. Yet the Tanakh doesn't let us forget what's going on in the Elah Valley. Okay? And therefore we have to remember what's going on there. And while we're dealing with David and his father's house and his sheep, the Tanakh doesn't allow us to disconnect ourselves. What's happening in the battlefield? What's happening? This Plishti leaves the camp morning and evening, and for 40 days, he doesn't care. He keeps on repeating his action. He goes out and he dares. Come over here. Send one guy over. And no answer. Not day one, not day two. But it continues for 40 days. And the Talmud asks, what's so important about 40 days of this Plishti coming out and daring the Jewish people to send someone? So the Gemara says in Mesechet Sotah, this is parallel to 40 days of giving the Torah. He's basically in opposition of the Torah for the Jewish people. And he's doing it hashkem ve'arev, to keep the Jews busy, not to read the morning Kriyat Shema and the evening Kriyat Shema. That's what the Talmud says. In other words, what we're understanding here, that the war is not necessarily a physical battle, but he's up against the spiritual side of the Jewish people as well. The fact that he's going out 40 days, and also morning and evening. Now, when the Tanakh took us back to the Elah Valley, what's going on, and the situation is unfortunately status quo, no Jew is volunteering to go out and fight him. What happened? Let's go back to the ranch in Beit Lechem, Pasuk Yud Zayin, and see how Yishai is now preparing his son, David, to bring him to the camp in order to help out the other sons. Pasuk Yud Zayin, Vayomer Yishai li David beno. By the way, do you remember, we didn't mention it, but we're told that during the days of Shaul, Yishai is already Zakein Ba'anashim.
Wait, is it Shaul or is it Yishai?
It's Yishai.
Oh.
Yishai is old. He doesn't have the ability apparently to go to war, and therefore he's represented by his own sons. And now, the caring Yishai for his other sons. Let's read it again. Vayomer Yishai le David beno. Kachna, please take. Le'achecha. Eifat hakali hazeh. You know, efa is
It's a measure.
it's a measure. It's a measure of dry flour usually. Okay, eifat soled.
How much is it like in grams?
It's about 25 liters. Efa
Okay.
in volume. And here we're thinking with kali. Do you know the verb kalui? What does liklot mean? Liklot is to roast or to toast. Okay? Take for your brothers a fat kali, meaning popcorn. You have some sort of grain that is toasted. And of course, if it's toasted, it's not, it's just,
You can't make flour out of it, no?
you can, but it retains itself. In other words, it's not like a bread. You bake the bread, it's going to go dry. Here, like popcorn, it stays toasted. Take that. Vasara lechem hazeh. Apparently 10 breads, which it could be one day of traveling, gentlemen, to get there. Veharetz hamachaneh. Quickly, run it up to the camp. Which camp? The military camp. The maracha leachecha. Now, further. Ve'taseret charitzei chalav. He's sending him some sort of cheese that has openings inside the hard cheese. Charitzim are openings, like you buy yellow cheese. What is it called? Swiss cheese?
Yeah.
It has the openings in it.
Can.
Okay? You've seen cheese with openings? That's
I don't know that.
I think it's Swiss cheese, if I'm not mistaken. In any event, take these 10 bars of these gvinot charitzei chalav tavi l'sara elef. Interesting. Give it to a high-ranking officer in charge of how many soldiers?
Like a general, no?
1,000, yeah, an aluf. Very good. V'tachecha tifkod l'shalom. See if everything is okay there. V'tarubatam tikach. I want you to take a confirmation that you were there and that you met with them and everything is okay. Interesting. Gentlemen, there are 5 things you can count here. Okay? Or 5 matters that David is bestowed upon, given an object. Are they all equal importance? Are they all the same thing? Or are some even more important than the other? Number 1, he's sending food. Who is the food?
Brothers.
Is it?
And the first, it says, no?
You're right. It's for the brothers. And the cheese is for who?
The general.
For the generals. Okay? Now, why is a father interested in sending a son with all these things? Okay? What will it, is it going to calm him down? Is the war right now in high pace that he wants to know what's going on? Why is Yishai sending this? And number 2, why is he sending David to his older brothers? Isn't David the youngest ones? Are there any other brothers at home? There are. There are another 4 brothers that are at home. And are they older or younger than David? They're all older. Rather, there are those that see into this matter a divine object. Do you remember, not long ago, the sending of Yosef from Emek Hebron by the father Yaakov to see how the brothers are doing in Shechem? What's the matter? Doesn't Yaakov know that Yosef and the brothers are not getting along so well?
So you want to send David on purpose so that they can speak, they can have
So what's going? What doesn't the Abba know that there could be some jealousy going on here? That David was anointed as king by Shmuel, and he's the youngest, and that's maybe the reason why the 3 oldest ones went home, went to the war camp. Doesn't he know that? So Rabbi Achrach suggests that maybe this shlichut is similar to the shlichut that Yaakov sent Yosef. Meaning that who is behind the shlichut? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It could be that Yaakov was worrying for his older sons, okay? But we know that there's right now a shlichut being done. It could be also the advice of God, even though maybe Yishai is not aware of it, this Eitzah of God. Or, shall we can say maybe, God is working through Yishai and controlling him or leading him in this direction. In any event, when you read, when we read the words, I want to share with you a midrash. When he says, Kachna le'achicha ifat kali hazeh, when he says the word hazeh, it reminds us that this brother was rejected. And then it says, Vaseret lechem hazeh, the word hazeh. That's reminding us that a second brother, hazeh lo bachar Hashem. And then Yishai tells his son, take the 10 cheeses, aseret charitzei hachalav ha'ele. The emphasis on ha'ele. And Shmuel says to Yishai, Lo bachar Hashem be'ela. We see an interesting parallel with the word hazeh, hazeh, or ha'ela, ha'ela. And then, what are we told about David? David ben Ish Ephrati hazeh. Hazeh is parallel to God telling Shmuel, get up and anoint him because kizehu. So we see interesting parallels between the word hazeh or ha'ela and so on and so forth. And I want to share with you that we'll better understand now what the Abarbanel says. When the Tanakh tells us the 3 sons of Yishai went, he tells us the following. The 3 brothers of David were constant members ready to go to war, and they would always go to Shaul and help him out to go to war. Yet, in spite of the fact, they were not ready to face up to the fact that their brother is anointed as king. And here the Torah is telling, the Tanakh is telling us the shame of the brothers, that instead of going to war for the sake of going to war, they're leaving their camp of their father in order to do what? To get away from their brother. In other words, these 3 are trying to get away from their brother David. That's what's happening now. Let's see how things develop. Pasuk Yutet. V'Shaul v'Hema v'Chol ish Yisrael be'emek ha'ela. We're back. What's going on back in the war camp? Shaul is separate. Ish Yisrael is separate. There's no unity. There's no king ruling over them. They're still in the valley of Elah. Nilchamim im ha'plishtim. Nilchamim?
They already fought, so they already had battles.
So you might think that's the pshat of the word. So therefore the Mitzudat David explains they're ready to fight. No fight is going on. Each day for 40 days, Goliath comes out and suggests, come fight with me. Send one guy. But no one's coming.
Or it's part of the spiritual warfare.
Right now, Nilchamim means they're ready to fight, but no one's going out to fight indeed against, everyone's afraid. They're ready to fight a war, collective war, but no one is really willing to go up against Goliath. Okay, let's go back to Beit Lechem. It seems like ping pong. From Beit Lechem to Emek Ha'ela, Beit Lechem to Emek Ha'ela. Pasuk 20, okay, verse 20. Vayashkem David baboker. Why?
It's like a midah of the tzaddik to wake up always.
Very good. He wants to do the mitzvah at its earliest time. The mitzvah of what? Of honoring his father. Okay? Vayashkem David baboker. What does this remind you, these 3 words? Where do we see that in the Chumash? What does it say? Vayashkem Avraham baboker. When you read this pasuk, you feel the sense of the urgency of like Avraham Avinu that took his son to go to the Akedah. Here, okay? Just like Yishai commanded David, please take this to your brothers. It was God commanding Avraham Avinu, take your son, your only son. And what did he do? he got up early in the morning. What does David do? Vayitosh et hatzon al shomer. What does he do? He deposits all the animals with a shomer. Okay? He does it himself. He doesn't ask anyone else to do it. He does it himself. He finds someone. This is parallel to Avram Avinu saddling up his own chamor. And then it says after he saddled up the chamor, vayakom vayelach. He got up and he went. What does it say here? Vayisa vayelach. He went up. Interesting. Why does the Tanakh use the word vayisa? The truth is, topographically, when you're leaving the Beit Lechem Hills and going to the Elah Valley, what are you doing? You're going down. You're losing altitude from 700-800 meters to 250-300 meters.
Maybe he mounts like a donkey or a wagon.
Oh, okay, so very nice. So maybe he's getting up on a donkey, could be one answer. Vayisa, that he's getting up. Or it could mean that he's lifting up the care package. He's loading up all the things. Kasher tzivo yisha, like Yishai said to him. Okay? Vayavo ha-ma'agala. What is a ma'agala? No. From the word ma'agal. What is a ma'agal? A ma'agal is a circle. He arrives apparently to the camp of the Israeli army that's encamped maybe in a circular form. Okay? In a circular form. Everyone's inside the camp and no one is leaving. Okay? So, gentlemen, it's interesting here that the prophet is using the language that the Torah uses. Why? Because maybe the prophet wants to bring closer to us each and every matter to show each act of David is so important. And therefore we can see how similar he is to Avram's action or different from Avram's action. Do you remember what was in Avram's heart when he left that morning early? Okay? He was getting ready to do something which is irrational, something which is not understandable, and so on. Can you imagine what's going on now in the mind of David as he leaves to do this mission? I'm anointed. My brothers maybe are jealous of me. They're there. No, he doesn't know exactly what's going on as far as the war. There's no intranet. There's no FedEx messages. But he's now going to do an important shlichut of his father. Okay? There's a Tehillim that King David wrote in 22 that maybe brings to light the action of David. He's about to do an important shlichut. King David says, by the way, he's doing everything, the ending of the pasuk, kasher tzivo yisha. He's doing exactly like his father's commanding him. A very important shlichut. What does David say in Tehillim Yudchet? Rabbi brings, Yishlach mi maro mikacheni. Let him send from the lofty heavens and let him take me. Yamsheni, let him lift me up, mimayim rabim, from deep waters. Vayotzieni lemerchav, may God take me out to the open area. Yichaltzeni, let him rescue me. Ki chafetz, because he wants me. You can notice in this chapter of David writing that he's suspicious or he's worried what will be the end of the shlichut. And he's asking God to save him. Okay? Ha'el, God. Ha'ma'azreini chayil, that you're loining me with valor. Vayitain tamim darkin, you're always giving me completeness in my way. Mishaver raglai ka'ayalot, you're equating my feet, giving me ability to run fast like ibex. Val bamotai, on high places yamideni. Milamed yadai milchama, you're the one that's teaching my hands how to go to war, how to overcome these matters. So here we see that David now has arrived in the camp. What happens? It says the following: Vayavo ma'agala v'chayo hayotze l'maracha v'heireu lamilchama. What is the Tanakh teaching us here in Pasuk 20? There could be that the army goes out to a certain point, but doesn't go anymore, and they may even raise their voices, laharia, and scream out. That's what he sees, but no more. There's no attack made. And who is going opposite them? Pasuk 21, Vata'aroch Yisraelu plishtim. Both armies are organized, maracha, likrat, Maracha. One army and establishment is opposite the other army. But no action is being done by Israel. No action is being done by Israel whatsoever. Now, David arrives. Pasuk Kavbet. Vayitosh David et hakelim me'alav ayad shomer hakelim vayarot hamaracha vayavo vayishal lechav l'shalom. You hear this? David arrives to the camp, and what does he put down? Immediately puts down all the packages he's been schlepping, and who does he leave it with? There's a guy, one of the members of the army. He's called Shomer HaKelim. What is his job?
To grab for the...
To maintain. Hold up. Would you please watch my watch? Would you take my car? Take my keys? There's one person who's in charge of storage of all the kelim of all the soldiers. So what he does is he brings everything to the Shomer Kelim, and now he runs to the area of the war. And what is he interested in? Meeting with his brothers and asking how they're doing. As he's speaking with them, Pasuk Kav Gimel, what does he see, which is a scene of 40 days and 40 nights? One of the guys that comes out of the middle of their camp, Ola, and his name is Goliath HaPlishti Shmo, Migat, Mimarchot Plishtim, from the army, the organized army of the Plishtim. Vayidaber kadvarim ha'ela. The Tanakh is short. It doesn't tell us what it told us before. What's coming out of the mouth of Goliath? Cursing and blaspheming the army of Israel. Who hears it but for the first time? Vayishma, David. Now, who's been hearing and watching for 40 days?
Three brothers and all the other soldiers.
The three brothers and all the rest of the soldiers of the army. Now we'll be able to compare what the entire army is seeing and hearing, and compare it to David. They hear it for the first time. V'chol ish Yisrael, what's happening as far as the army is concerned? Birotam etish, when they see this man, this unusual, physical, material man who's so tall with so much armory, what is their reaction? Vayanusimi panav. They retreat. And how do we pronounce the next word? We're not going to pronounce it Vayiru, because Vayiru means and they saw. So do you see the vertical line? Vayiru. Do you see? You're right. No, you're right. But Vayiru meod. Do you see the small vertical line under the yud? That's called a metek. That separates one syllable from another syllable. And therefore, when you have a shva under the resh, it's the beginning of a new syllable. It's like a shva at the beginning of a word, which will be a shva na, a more motioning, dynamic shva. And therefore, it's probably pronounced vayireu, from the word yirah, as opposed to lirot. Okay? So here, the Tanakh clearly tells us what's going on with the camp of Israel. They're full of fear. When they hear the Plishtim talk and dare the Jewish people, they're full of fear. And David, does it say that David is full of fear? No. Vayomer ish Yisrael. One of the men says, Hari'itema ish ha'oleh hazeh ki lecha refet Yisrael oleh. V'haya האיש אשר יכנו יעשרנו המלך עושר גדול ואת ביתו ייתן לו ואת בית אביו יעשה חופשי בישראל. Inside the camp there's talk, and inside this talk, what do you hear? One of the guy is saying, do you know what this guy is doing? He's cursing and blaspheming Israel. And do you know that there's an award that could be rewarded? Meaning, who's going to bring the reward? The king of Israel. He's going to give a tremendous wealth for anyone that goes up against this giant. What is he going to give? Vet bito yitain lo. You can marry his daughter. You can marry into royalty. Plus, Beit Aviv. You'll be part of the house of the father. Yaseh chofshi b'Yisrael. What do you mean chofshi? What do you mean Yaseh chofshi b'Yisrael?
Let's hear that
You'll be
he will free his father's family from service to.
You'll be free of taxes. Usually that's how we explain. You will not be taxed. You'll be free. Now, this is what? Who hears this? David hears this. He sees and he hears. What did he hear? First he heard the blasphemy, the cursing of Goliath. Then he sees him. And then he hears someone talking amongst the soldiers. Wow, the guy that goes out there and fight up against him is going to be awarded in prize with the daughter of the king, and he'll be living in the house of the king, and then he will be untaxed. When David hears that, something's wrong. Something's wrong. What's wrong? What? The king has to promise an award for someone to go fight this idiot? This man that's cursing God's name? Who needs a reward? Who needs an award? Let's see how David writes. Pasuk Kavav, the prophet writes, Vayomer David el anashim omdim imo lemor. Next to the people that he is by, he says the following reaction. Ma yaseh la'ish asher yaketa plishti alaz ve'isir charpami al Yisrael. Do you understand how it's read? There's nothing to be offered for someone to fight the Plishti. Why? Because anyone that goes out to fight him, you're going to remove the shame from the Jewish people. That's enough. Kimia Plishti. Who is this guy? He's nothing. And now he curses him. Arel, foreskin, uncircumcised, is a curse word. You're the grossest. Ki cheiref marachot elokim chayim. One of the most significant statements here in the Tanakh, more by David in his lifetime, is he's putting down whoever heard an offer of giving you a prize to go out and fight the Plishtim. You don't need a prize. The prize itself is what? Doing away with the Plishtim. He doesn't deserve to live. He's shaming Israel. And of course, notice what he calls the army camp of Israel. No one said it before. Ki cheref marachot elokim chayim.
What does it mean?
Blasphemy. But notice what he calls the camp of Israel. Marachot of who? Elokim chayim. Wow. The army of Israel is the manifestation of our living God. And this point we'll delve into more B'ezrat Hashem in our next learning, how in the army camp of God, of Israel, is God's presence. We'll learn it has a lot of nafkamin and halacha when we're inside the army camp, that we can't do our waste inside the camp, and we have to have a kli to dig in order to cover up, because the Shekhinah is in the camp of the army camp of Israel. And David says, this is the army, this is the camp of God. We'll continue with this point, B'ezrat Hashem, here.